All right, what you got for me?
What do I got for you today? Well, today we're going to talk about something I think a little interesting is growing up in the 70s. I think people might like this a lot. Got a couple rants. As usual, people are pissing Gary off, and it happens usually on a daily basis, but I try and keep it tempered, internalize it in my Irish ways until it explodes into basically a supernova. But it's just dealing. I think getting older, we've talked about this. If I'm getting worse with patience, I think I'm getting better, but maybe not. But people are such assholes. I mean, if there's a single lane for you to walk in, right? And this happens because I mountain bike a lot. So I end up on mountain biking trails, and hikers are on there, horses on there. I've never figured out the horse thing. Why do you need to ride a horse on a hiking trail? Horses can go anywhere. They can go anywhere they want their horses. But you got to screw up my goddamn trail with your big ass horse shitting all over my trail. I mean, they shit everywhere. So I'm riding through shit the whole time. And then they chunk it all up so the trail's all jacked up and jagged. It's rough. And anyone who's ridden mountain bikes knows if it's real soft conditions, it's dangerous because you have no control. It's really hard to control if the dirt's all real sandy and stuff. Okay, but that was a side note. But if you're in a single trail, like even on a small walkway, people today, they like to walk in pairs right next to each other and block the whole fucking trail. And it drives me nuts. And I'm coming up on them and they ain't moving. They're like, oh, no. We're talking. We're not moving. Hey, if it's a single wide trail, assholes, get out of the way. I don't care where you're at walking. You're not that important. Get out of my way. Get behind each other so I can go by you.
Where are these?
And another thing, anywhere. It's mainly in California, to be honest with you, is where I find it. California's got its own uniqueness of jackass. It really does. People just act the fool here. A lot of times they think they're really important because I think they would watch too much TV or I don't know what. I don't know what happens. Something rots their brains out here to act stupid. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I grew up in California. I love this place, but I hate it. It's one of those, the people can be pretty toxic. And I don't know if it's just, we talked about 39 million people here, 38 million people in the state of California. It's packed. I mean, there's a lot of people here. So maybe they're just got a bad attitude and they're just too many of us would be my guess. I shouldn't say us. I don't claim to live here anymore. But yeah, that was bugging me. And then people walking through you. This all happened yesterday. And that's nice. I like when software updates hit you right in the middle of it's Microsoft, of course.
Oh yeah, and that means
that could be
if you're on a Mac, that means you cannot download it. It'll get halfway through the download, stop, and just freeze.
Oh.
So that auto update on Microsoft. So that's my little rant today. It just happened to me a little while ago too.
Well, and it just froze us up. I clicked out of it and it froze everything up. I bought a Mac so I wouldn't have to deal with Microsoft, and I still deal with them. And I heard someone saying how great Bill Gates is yesterday, how, he's this great humanitarian. Bill Gates is friggin' evil. Anyone who knows truly what Bill Gates is and what he does in life, the guy's evil. I mean, and to say, well, he's this big philanthropist or his buddy Warren Buffett. Wake up, people. You don't become billionaires by being kind to people. You become billionaires in the software industry by pulling wings off butterflies, basically. Don't go there. Do not go there. I mean, Bill Gates, if you dig into him, is an awful person. I probably just pissed a bunch of people off with that one too. But yeah, it's like people, this lady, I've had this, and this happens in California mainly, tried walking right through me. I mean, I'm coming out of the grocery store, she's coming in, and she was not gonna move. She was gonna, if I wouldn't have moved, she would have literally walked into me and tried to walk through me. If you're doing that, you need to reevaluate your life, because you're just being a complete, utter idiot asshole. You really are. If you
So
think,
she
and
just she just thought that her time was more important than yours, more valuable.
and she was acting that way. Like she had this look on her face, and she was walking in like, don't you get in my way. How dare you get in my way? And you're like, who are you? You know, try that shit 200 years ago. You would have got a tree branch upside the friggin' head. You know what I mean? It's like, we and I like, because it dovetails kind of into that 70s, you know, growing up in the 70s. And I'm sporting, hey, 1978 Rush Hemispheres tour, by the way. That you never hear you hear a lot of people reminiscing about the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
you know, who grew up in them. Because we always go, God, the 70s, weren't those great? The 70s and like early, mid 80s. It started getting weird at the end of the 80s, started getting a little different. But people seemed to be a lot nicer, seemed to be a lot happier. I don't remember any real racial tensions. You know, I don't remember. I mean, I was a kid, but I
Yeah,
just
well,
don't
it
see
depends on there were maybe
the divisive.
there, but actually Kentucky's pretty famous for the early 70s as being racially divided, because that's when the busing was going on, and Louisville was kind of at the center point
Yeah.
of the busing controversy. So I remember my mom and dad taking a bus to Washington D.C. to protest in 74, 75, I think. So yeah, it was pretty bad.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the racial tensions in Louisville were pretty huge, and you know, if anytime you look up about busing, that one of the first things that comes up was the problems they had in Louisville. So yeah, racial tensions were really bad here.
Well, I have to put a disclaimer on that, because I was, you know, when that was going on, I was like 2.
Yeah.
It was more of when I was old enough and had a cognitive thought
Mm-hmm.
instead of just a bowl of cellular mush.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once I kind of figured out, I would say, you know, I figured things out around 75. You know, I kind of was a kid. I kind of could communicate and things like that. But yeah, obviously the end of the 60s were pretty tumultuous. And, you know, the 60s obviously were pretty bad. I didn't grow up through them, but I'd talk to people. They go, oh, dude, they were bad, you know, and you're like, well, I guess here we are again. But you look at it, how everything's changed. We were talking about Captain Fantastic, that movie, you know, and him standing naked in the bus and people, you know, the old people freaking out. And it's like today, everything is drama. Everything is taboo. It's almost like we've so lost it in the 70s. I mean, I even remember, you know, as a kid, by the time I was 10, I had no parental supervision at all.
Mm-hmm.
When it was summertime, I don't know if my parents ever even knew where I was.
I don't think. I mean,
And in
I'm
a
sure
small
mine
town, it's a little.
didn't or cared.
No, that's what I mean. We had no cell phones. They had no way of tracking me down. There was no GPS on my bike or anything, you know. And I remember even I lived in Clovis with my dad for a year, Clovis, California. It's right next to Fresno. And me and my buddies would get up early, and one of our buddies would go steal the money out of his dad's change drawer in his closet, and we'd go take the bus, our bikes, and then we'd load our bikes on the bus, and we'd go to the mall in downtown Fresno. I don't know if I would do that. Fresno is pretty dangerous today. But I don't think it was much better back. I don't know if it was much better back then. But we would just load up, and we were 12, maybe 11. I wasn't in junior high yet. How old are you in 6th grade? 12?
Man, that's a
I
yeah,
think so.
11 or 12.
So I was 11. Yeah, I was 11, 12. And to think of that, you know, totally on my own. I remember I had a house key and I had a watch. I had my
But
Casio
I didn't
digital
have a house
watch, and
key.
that's
We never locked our house.
well. There, I was in Clovis, so we had a house key, but usually it wasn't locked. And actually, we had that gives me another story of we didn't lock our doors. I grew up in a very small town, just like you. We never locked our doors. We didn't lock our car doors. We didn't lock our house doors. But when I was in this year in Clovis, well, my dad being from the same place, a guy, I want to say it was like 2 a.m, wanders in our house, hammered, drunker than shit. And I hear someone going through my drawers in my bedroom. I wake up, I'm in my bed. I'm all, who's going through my drawers? It was this drunk guy had wandered through the house, got to my bedroom, was looking for his underwear. He was trying to put on, 11-year-old's underwear and couldn't figure it out. And next thing I know, yeah. And I hear him wander out and he's mumbling. I'm all, God, what's my dad do? What's up with my dad? What's he doing? So I finally kind of figure out, I go, I don't think that's him. I wander in my dad's room and I go, Dad, dude, there's someone in the house. And he goes, what do you mean someone in the house? I go, there's someone in the house. And he goes, oh shit, here comes out the 38. Next thing I know, my dad in his tighty whities, all the lights are on. He's yelling at this guy to get on the ground before he blows his goddamn head off. And we've got a drunk dude sprawled out in our living room, mumbling to himself. I think he pissed himself at one point. He was so drunk. The cops come over, they wrestle this guy up, and he had wandered into the wrong street. He actually lived in a house a street up, but they're all cookie cutters. So it looked like his house. Yeah. He was just on the wrong street. And so he wandered in our house by accident. And I just think of that. Well, that meant his house was unlocked too.
Yeah.
Think about it. If he just walked in, his house was probably unlocked. And
if you're in a cookie cutter,
the drama,
his house, the layout of the house probably was super similar too. Back in the 70s, I mean, every house were basically the same house, just built right next to each other.
It was. And that's how he ended up in my room. It was his room in that house. And so, yeah, you think the 70s, and our park lights were on till midnight there. So us as kids, we would play in the park, which was like 5-6 blocks from my house. We would play in the park till midnight, till the lights went out. In the summer, we couldn't, school days, obviously. And I just remember things being so different. We were all, latchkey kids. I mean, I don't remember anyone who had much of a curfew. Yeah. Good or bad kids. I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, we did whatever we want. We were rummaging through each other's parents, dad's Playboys and Hustler. Anything we get, anything to entertain ourselves with, that if you did today, you'd be in deep, deep shit. And not only would you be in trouble, could you imagine if someone found out today that, a neighbor of mine, that I'm rolling down to downtown wherever as an 11, 12-year-old, unsupervised, on my bike, and getting in, we didn't get into too much trouble, and riding the bus and stuff, someone would call Child Protective Services on you today.
Oh, yeah, they would. And the funny thing is, my wife talks about, she did the same thing with her friends, and she's 11 years younger than me. So she was an early 80s kid, but they would ride their bikes around the town too. And living in basically the same subdivision my wife grew up in with kids, I don't see any kids really riding around here without some kind of supervision, whereas back in the day, you're talking about just Child Protective Services or something like that. Whenever I was in second grade, I was coming home from school, and I was the first one on the bus and the last one off the bus. And like I said, this was during busing. So I stayed on the bus an hour and a half each way to go home, because I was my parents, because of what was going on, they put me in a private school. And we were riding the bus home one day. I was the last one on, and I still had a long way to go, and we were stuck in traffic. Well, I recognized the park that was probably a half mile from our house that we were driving by. And I told the bus driver, I was like, look, there's the park right there. My house is right down the street. I'm stuck in traffic. Can I just go home? Second grade, let me out. Let me out a half mile from my house on an assumption that I knew that was the same park that was down the street from us. So I had to go down a little gully, go through some bushes, get into the park, go there, walk home, walked in the door, and my mom's like, where was the bus? And she was heated. But yet, if you did that now, that bus driver would have been fired, and it would have been this huge, huge thing. But she was just mad at me. She wasn't mad at the bus driver at all. She was mad at me for doing it.
Well, and you're right, because I lived at 30 miles from my town, so I was same thing. I was on the bus before I got my driver's license for a long, 2-3 hours out of the day. I was on the bus. And our house was a little over a mile from the bus stop, going across a major highway. So the bus stop was on the flip side of the highway. So we had to cross the highway to get to the bus stop. Actually, one of the girls, my neighbors, got hit by a car going across the highway. They were screwing off and didn't see him coming, and it knocked her out. The mirror hit her in the head, knocked her clean out. Lucky. I mean, super lucky. But just that. I mean, could you imagine kids rolling by themselves across the highway to get to the bus stop? But I'd walk a mile home to get home, and no one was home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, you think of the stuff that, and yeah, you just look back at that and you go, today, I don't know if any, and it did, and I'm not saying, I am saying there's nothing wrong with that. It's part of growing up. You got to figure shit out. I mean, you can't have your hand held all the time. If I can't figure out how to get to the bus stop and get back from the bus stop to my house, well, hey, I guess Darwin needs to take over, because I'm an idiot. I mean, you got to figure stuff out in life. And I think that's today, as we coddle every kid. And I'm curious to see, we're going to have, in the next 10 years, we're going to have this next generation coming up. There was no helmets. Remember, riding your bike, there was no such thing as a bike helmet.
No.
They hadn't been, I don't think they had been invented at that point. There were skateboard helmets. Now, we had skateboard helmets. They were the old, if you look back at Mike Weed and, God, who were the guys back then? Sims. I go way back. I was a skateboarder too. I never wore a helmet. We had them, but I never wore one.
Yeah, even when they started
bikers,
wearing, they were the Tony Hawk, the helmet with the strap all the way down here that wasn't going to do anything when you bit it.
Oh, no. It would only save you from possibly dying. You were still going to get a traumatic head injury, but you wouldn't die. And I actually had friends on our bikes that one guy actually did get a traumatic head injury. He got the speed wobbles doing about 50 miles an hour down a hill, and he launched and hit his head on a rock, and he was toast. But I don't think the helmet would have helped him out much, because he hit it pretty hard.
Well, if you look at sports back then, I mean, if you watch the Tour de France in the 70s, they're not wearing helmets, but also like hockey. Nobody in hockey is wearing a helmet. So you're zinging a puck 100 miles an hour, and you just are in the wrong place. You get beamed in the head. I mean, that was just part of the game back then,
Well, in football, today, even this bugs me. Football players, even pros, are coming out. Well, now that I know about head injuries and stuff, I'm not going to, my kids aren't playing because the stuff I went through. I'm sitting there going, let me get this straight. I grew up playing football, tackle football. We hit heads all the time. Do you think for not 1 second that I didn't know what I was doing was dangerous? As a teenager, I knew this. And now they're saying, well, they didn't tell me, and da-da-da. It's like being a boxer and going, well, if I would have known that getting hit in the head with a padded fist was going to cause problems down the road, I wouldn't have done it. You should be boxing because you're stupid. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, put you in the ring because you're a moron. Anyone who doesn't think you take multiple shots to the head, that it's not going to have some change or effect in your life, come on. I mean, to me, that's just being a baby. You're being stupid. Everything has a risk that uses any sort of, anything that's competitive. I don't care what it is. Swimming could be dangerous, for God's sakes. You could drown. I mean, you could hit your head on the edge of the pool trying to turn around. There's so many. I mean, it could be anything. And to think that just certain sports that we're going to cry about, and I know that football is taking a beating, that parents don't want none of their kids playing football anymore because it's too violent.
Well, it's funny because they don't want them to play football, but they're having them play soccer, and they found now that taking the doing headers in soccer are like getting hit by a lineman. So I mean it's there's you're just trading one concussion for another.
Well, and that goes back
to micro concussions, and I think they understood the big thing, but I don't think they understood micro concussions. I don't think they understood that just like an offense and defensive lineman that hit each other, whether you hit helmets or not, you're creating that where the brain is in the fluid and the fluid rushes back, the brain rushes forward and hits the wall. I don't think they realized that. I don't think they realized it was the minute shots that were getting you.
I don't know about that, because shaken baby syndrome's been around for a long time. They've known about it and how it will cause sudden death, the shaking. It's the same principle. It's because their brain is getting shaken and bouncing off the side of their skull.
Yeah, but I don't think adults realized until recently that our brains, I think people thought that as your skull grew and your head grew, the brain grew into the skull to sit there real nice and tight. And I really don't think people realized that it was more floaty than until
I don't know, recently. Man. Growing up, I knew all this stuff I did could have repercussions.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they didn't know there were repercussions, but I don't think people thought about it on the micro level. They looked at it on the macro level, where you have a 230-mile-an-hour collisions, two people hitting, get knocked out. All right, there's your concussion. They didn't it's the micro concussions. I don't think people.
Well, and they're saying that the athletes are getting bigger, stronger, faster, and they are. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they're quite, a lineman of 30, 40 years ago was quite smaller than they are now and not as fast.
Yeah. A lineman today
is fast.
40 in the same amount of time that a running back did in the 70s.
But I look at it as the trade-off that their equipment was far less superior. It was inferior. It was, I mean, you're talking those helmets. When I grew up as a young kid, the helmets weren't even, they were more dangerous than hitting your head. Those helmets hurt.
Thing, though, is people are saying that actually the technology of helmets and the technology of equipment in football is making it worse too, because back in the day, you knew your limits.
Well, yeah, you couldn't spear someone.
You couldn't just drill somebody when you had a leather helmet, or even in the 70s and 80s, those one-bar Rydell helmets, I mean, you knew what you couldn't do. I mean, those guys would come out bloody noses and cut up and everything, but, they weren't.
I think a lot more guys got paralyzed back in those days playing.
I'm sure they did.
Than I remember now. But don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a dangerous sport. But again, I look at it as you're getting paid at the pro level. Obviously, as a kid, you want to have, I think as the kids, you want to have a little different rules in place.
Well, the kids aren't smashing into each other at 25 miles an hour either.
Well, they're getting bigger and faster. I watch a lot because my friend coaches his son in the younger youth leagues, and they're pretty good and they get going pretty fast. But the tackling techniques they're telling them now, that they've changed, like what we grew up, what we were taught how to tackle, which is to dip your shoulder, wrap, and take them to the ground. Well, now they're teaching them to stay upright, keep your head up, and you have to wrap with your head up. And me and him were going back and forth. I go, dude, I'm in health. And, I understand the physics of the human body. I'm telling you, you just wait. They're going to find far more neck and head injuries on tackling head up like that than they did because you dip your head and you would pull your head to the side because you're trying to get the impact on your shoulder. You weren't going ahead and dipping your head into the body. You were moving it out of the way to get the shoulder. And I go, now standing up, you're taking a blow to the face and you're getting your neck snapped back. And I go, you watch. I go, 10 years from now, they're going to learn that tackling technique was actually more dangerous than the one that we grew up with, which was, the prototypical, dip down, wrap, take them to the ground. I went, and not only that, but you were trying to wrap them either in the torso or down below. You were trying to get them torso and below. You weren't trying to hit them up high usually, unless you're trying to clean their clock, which, we were taught that too. But, I don't know, man. I just think what you see today, we've got to get over some stuff, because you can't protect everyone from everything. And don't get me wrong, there are predators. There was predators back when we were kids. Kids disappeared. The thing is, and I don't want that either. They go, hey, Gary, you don't have kids. You don't understand. It's like, no, I'm not that way. It's just there's bad people everywhere all the time throughout history. Humans are the only animal that will actually start a war to kill other humans and slaughter them out. That is the only role. One of the roles of humans. You don't see a pack of wolves starting a war with a pack of monkeys and killing all of them. It's just humans. We've got this weird wiring to where there's some evilness in us that we just can't quite get over. But that doesn't mean you try and protect everyone from everything, because then the opposite starts to happen. I think is you become insulated, you become even more desensitized, and those incidents and those harmful things that happen in life are actually a survival mechanism. You remember them and you encounter them in order to teach you for the next one, to avoid it. If you're not getting any of that and you go all through childhood without learning any really valuable lessons, well, you're going to be a pretty crappy adult, because we're getting it. The snowflake, I need my safe zone. I need this. I need that. Safe zone in college. Are you friggin' kidding me? Suck it up, buttercup, man. College is about learning. Could you imagine going to boot camp and having safe zones?
No. Don't make fun of that. They might be at some point.
Oh, I think it's coming. If it's in colleges, I can see it. Well, they did the red card. The safety timeouts, that didn't last very long. That happened after us. They experimented with that and they went, oh, that's not going to work. So, I mean, I just think as a guy growing up, I just wish we would kind of get a little bit back more to that mentality of, it was a more simplified life too, because we didn't have cell phones. Computers, I don't remember them coming around. My buddy had a Commodore 64.
Yeah, I remember playing.
I remember that.
Yeah.
But you couldn't do much on it. It was basically
TRS-80 was the first computer I remember, because a friend of mine, his family owned a furniture store, and this had to be 80, 81, 82, and they had a TRS-80, and they had 2 games on there. One of them was something of the Valkyrie, and it was this cheesy game. And I would love to play it right now just to see how bad it was, but it was the first, real game I ever saw. And so they came around like late 70s, early 80s.
Was it? I remember, the Atari, we had Atari and all that good stuff growing up. And those video games, trust me, and you would play. I remember that was different too. We wouldn't even have our parents would get on us sometimes. Remember Atari thumb?
Oh yeah.
Your thumb would get just swollen and all.
Well, you had to hold the controller in a way on some games, and you would jack your wrist up, and you'd have to get your thumb in a weird angle just to. And they would.
I remember that. Yeah, you'd hold it, and you're like, "Oh, I got Atari thumb and wrist, so I gotta tweak it." But we would. I remember us playing for like about an hour and a half, and then we'd go outside.
Mm-hmm.
We'd wear each other out. I mean, just full bonkers, because we probably loaded ourselves up with Kool-Aid, about 5 cookies, and Wonder Bread and bologna. I think those were our staples at that point. So wind yourself down, come back in, maybe take a nap, get back up, play video games, and then you were out. I mean, the video games were there, but we were not playing them all day long. I don't remember playing them every day either. It wasn't allowed. I do remember my parents putting their foot and going, that's not going to happen. And it was serious. I mean, it was like, if there was no even unplugging the thing, because they said, you touch it and that's it. We'll throw that thing in the trash. And you're like, oh God, don't do that. And today it's more of, well, you get video games, but you got to do your homework first. Then you get an hour, and then they end up playing. I watch my friends' kids play video games 4, 5, 6 hours a day. I mean, it's non-stop. And then they'll go from their video game to their phone. They go to their phone, then their parents have a better phone, so they start playing games on their parents' phone. That's crazy to me, man. I mean, I love technology, and I love that we're advancing, because that's what humans are going to do until we probably wipe ourselves out at some point, or the robots come and kill all of us that we've created with. They become smarter than us, which won't take much for some people. It won't take. I think some of the vacuum cleaners that do the floors now, the whatever iBots or whatever, I think those are smarter than some people today. But I just think, looking back at some of that, and that's what I'm kind of teaching in my life simplicity. And like I said, I love advancement, but there's a point where it has a negative side effect on it too. I mean, you got to take a break. I mean, get away from the computer. I do. Yesterday, I had to walk away from my computer finally. I said, and I actually went to bed. I was telling you, I went to bed at a normal hour. I got a good night's sleep, and it was because I shut my computer down about 2 hours earlier than I have been lately. And it's stuff like that, put the cell phone away. And I'm getting to where I'm starting to turn it off. And this, for example, this is what started the rants today that pissed me all off. This was the capper of my night after dealing with that in the AM. People acting the fool. I come home and, I'm working. I get a call from Florida. And this is kind of people are going, what's this relate to? It's, again, the instant access. People just couldn't call me sitting down at my computer in the 70s, and get a hold of me right there. Some fool calls me from Florida, leaves me I see it, I don't recognize the number, so I hit it to voicemail. And it's some jackass saying, hey, Gary, I found you through some sites, and, I like what you're doing. I've got this great business opportunity. I'm trying to take over the medical industry and get them flying right. And I can get you to make up to $1 million a day. I kid you not. This guy says this. I go, first of all, how screwed up do you have to be as an individual to call me not knowing me? He got my Google Voice number somehow. I have it out there. And I'm all, okay, so you call me directly, all right, leave me this long voicemail, and then you say, oh, I can make you up to $1 million a day. You have to be a special type of retard to first of all, do that. The calling me, if you have a business opportunity and you call me, that's probably slightly out of bounds. If you don't know me, I would not recommend doing that, period. If you're an entrepreneur or you think you are, because he probably thinks he's an entrepreneur, but he's an ass clown is what he is. I would not recommend that type of marketing method. Cold calling random people that you get their number somehow off the internet to pitch them some bullshit business idea.
Because it did $1 million a day.
Yeah, it spun me up right away to where I'm all, okay, let me see what this guy is about. So I go to his Facebook page that he gave me because I want to see if I could find his contact information. And I was going to start blowing his contact information out and say, oh, go contact this guy. Wear him out, see what he thinks about it. I wasn't going to do that. It takes too much effort. It's a nice thought. So I look, he's a complete idiot. All kinds of BS on this Facebook page. I could tell the guy's a total scammer. So what do I get? I get an email. While I'm looking at his Facebook, Gary, did you get my voicemail? The dude finds he signs up for my newsletter, replies back to the newsletter that somehow, some of them, I can get them sometimes. I'll get some of them. The spam filter didn't pick it up. And so it's a rambling email. And he's pitching something totally different in the email now. So now he's pitched me on the phone. Now he's pitched me. This is all in 5 minutes. I'm all MF, man. God, if you lived closer, I would literally drive over there and knock you out, punch you straight in the face. What are you thinking? This is, to me, that's, again, this wouldn't have happened in the 70s. This wouldn't have happened. And if it would have, if some guy would have done this, I remember seeing.
Well, he would have had to show up at your house.
Yeah, I remember my dad yelling at people, pulling that crap and saying, get off my property, you're trespassing. And if you aren't off here quick enough, you're about ready to get smashed. And people today would go, oh, that's violent. Oh my God, you get to hit someone? Yeah, you're on my property, buddy. You're going to pay the consequences. If you don't get off, I'm going to forcefully drag you off, maybe unconscious. That's because today people don't have this kind of sense of borders, of boundaries. Everyone thinks they can just jump right in your shit without any consequences. And I just remember that didn't fly, especially in a small little redneck town. There was going to be an ass whooping ensue at some point for that. So he emails me, calls me again, literally calls me again. And I'm like, leaves another voicemail. It's that stuff today that we were talking about, the episode coming up. I think this is a good one after that. Is the stress. That guy caused me like 30 minutes of stress because some ass clown decides he's going to pitch me his magic deal that is nothing different than some Nigerian friggin' credit card scam. Or, I just got this deal of $5 million, but I can't get it into a bank account in the US kind of crap. I mean, it's stuff like that that this guy, I should be able to call a hotline, go, here's such and such. Here's all of his information. Would you pick him up and put him in a pit in the ground and lock the door for a week with no food or water? Actually, you can pee in the hole to give him some. And people are going, God, Gary's pissed. Yeah, it's crap like this that makes our lives miserable today. It's that instantaneous being able to reach out and touch me and interfere with my day for no reason.
You know, it's funny because a few
Yeah.
years ago they passed those laws that
Those meant nothing.
Yeah, it meant nothing. My phone rings 10 times a day, and I don't talk on the phone much. This is as much communication as I do right here, is talking to you right here.
too.
Because, you know, if I'll send a quick message if I need something. I don't need a long conversation or whatever. But, you know, I get 10, 15 calls a day from numbers I don't recognize constantly, and I just send them straight to voicemail. Now, most of them don't leave a voicemail, but if they do, it's because it's like, I used to sell insurance. So it's some other company that's like, hey, would you like to earn such and such commission on a certain product? And I get that constantly.
Well, and I did sales too. I mean, I worked for a couple companies doing sales back in the day. My rule too is if I was ever looking for a job, any job that said cold calling, I'm not going to do that. Because I don't want to bug someone.
Yeah.
Now, my attitude is if it's a good company, they're going to have an internal list. They're going to have a referral list. It's inside sales. Anyone in sales knows the best job is inside sales because you're already hitting a target, usually that is interested in your product. The ones that do cold calls, these people have no clue who you are, who your product is. You're just bugging the crap out of someone.
Oh, trust me. I did it for 5 years.
Did it just wear on your soul?
I did. I hated it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was necessary. I saw the necessity, but I mean, it's the same way. I mean, my father-in-law talks about it too. I mean, when he started out in as a financial advisor, they gave you a phone book, and you started at the beginning of the phone book, and you started calling. And you know, it was all a numbers game, still a numbers game. I mean, that's how sales is. It's
Well, and that's what they're teaching too. I think that's a big difference back then too, is you couldn't reach out and touch someone, but you also wouldn't continue to harass them. It was just an unwritten rule that, hey, okay, they're not interested in my product. Maybe I follow up a couple, 3, 4, 5, 6 months from now. What I get now is I say, no, I'm not interested. I get hit up, especially in the fitness industry, gyms, because I've obviously belonged to a bazillion gyms over the years. I've had some hit me up literally the next day, and then a couple days later. I'm not joining your gym. Stop calling me. And they're all, oh, well, sir, it's some, young 20-something-year-old. And this happened recently. It was, I hate to bag on these millennials, but I'm going to teach you a very valuable lesson. Do not harass people. And I read this girl the riot act. After she hit me up 5 times, I said, what made you think that the 5th was the magic one, or that you were going to continue? I went, not only are you never going to contact me again, now you've pissed me off to where I belonged to your gym before, and there was probably a chance down the road I may belong to it again at some point in my life, but now I'm not, because now you put this negative experience in my mind. I'll just go to your competitor who didn't bug the crap out of me. And she's all, well, and I go, no. When I say I'm not interested, the first time, I'm not interested. Do not harass me. If you want to follow up, and ask me first, go, hey, sir, can I follow up with you, say 6 months from now? And you know what I would have said? I would have said, sure, I may be in a place where your gym is at, where I may join, or I may contact you before. And she just didn't get it, because they're teaching, and it's not their fault. I take that back. I do not blame the millennials, because the millennials are not teaching the millennials to do this. It's our generation. It's our generation teaching these kids to pound us to death because you got to sell something. And that kind of dovetails into it too, of consumer society. And that's what we were talking about, the stress, is there's so much stress put upon ourselves by just buying stuff. We're bombarded by marketing all the time. And I'm trying to figure out, me and you, we have a podcast and I have a business. And I think that's where I've been really, really careful, with my business, and I probably have negatively affected my growth and where I could be. But the positive side of where my business is today is I have fantastic customers. I would put my customers against any customer base of any industry. I love my customers because they truly believe what I do and they follow me, and I don't have a bunch of one and outs, and that's what marketing teaches today is it doesn't matter if they come back.
Mm-hmm.
You're just trying to quick hit them. You want that sale one, turn and burn is what I call it. And a lot of these marketing professionals, these get rich quick plans, that's all they're teaching. It's a numbers game. Just get as many numbers in as you can, sell as much product as you can, and who gives a crap if they come back? My attitude is no. I want you to follow what I do. I want you to respect what I do, because what I'm doing is trying to help you. That's where I developed my company. I'm not just trying to sell you something. And if I can't get you into my what I've modeled that I built and what I'm trying to teach, well, then I'm doing something wrong. Then my structure of my company's wrong. It's not to fix it. Today they teach you, it doesn't matter what the product is. You just need slick marketing. You don't have to be an expert. Just be an expert in marketing. That's rough, man. That's rough. And not to say that marketing hasn't been around for the last, 200 years or 300 years or whatever, but it's changed.
Well, they've mastered it. They put psychology into it, and they know what works.
It's master manipulation.
It is, and it's the same thing that's happening in politics. Politics has learned exactly what to do to get you to push the right buttons. They've learned how to play on the stupid. Really.
Well, look at what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with a master marketer.
Mm-hmm.
Is our president. And I don't want to get too far into politics because I don't like it. I worked in this stuff for years. I've been around so many politicians. I hate them all. But that's what we have today. Literally we have a master marketer. That's what we got. He's brilliant at marketing himself, and Hillary and Obama was actually really good. He was really good at marketing via social media.
Mm-hmm.
And using other things because he wasn't a business owner. He didn't understand the business side of things. But yeah, you see it in our politics today. And I think that's interesting that we've grown up with the as the technology has shifted, I think it's given us different politicians too. It's given us, I'll say, they've never been good. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, they're politicians. But I think we're getting a special smell or stink of politician today because you don't even have to know them. Back in the day, they would go out and travel all over the country and handshake door to door. Now it's just, hey, man, all I got to do is put an ad on Facebook or start a Twitter account and I can reach out to you. Think of that. We have a president who tweets direct
without a filter. Usually you have a PR person there that you read say, all right, this is what I want to say. And the PR person goes, yeah, not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't have that.
He doesn't have that filter. And to me, it's bizarre. I compare it to, Obama giving shout outs. That's where it kind of started, where it went down that slippery slope of a president giving shout outs. Huh? I don't think that's very presidential. I don't think presidents should be giving shout outs. I don't think that's appropriate. You can call me whatever, maybe call me a stick in the ass kind of guy, but I just don't think that's the place for it. And this is taking it to the 10th level. What Obama did was, you're kind of like, I don't know about that.
He's just trying to seem cool.
He was trying to seem cool. And which, hey, whatever. But this is taking it to a whole nother level, and this is completely and utterly inappropriate. I don't care what political affiliation. I am not a Democrat, and I am not a Republican. I'll get that out right in the open right now. This is weird. I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. Bizarre. Yeah. And it just shows you where we're at today, though, is that we now have a president using social media directly and without filters, coming straight to you. It's bizarre. And good or bad. It is. I see the upside to it too, because we talked about the media. how screwed up the media is today. And he is circumventing the media, but I think there's better ways.
Well, he's
to do it.
circumventing the media, but you're seeing the true colors, and that's the thing, at least when you go to the media, you're very guarded about what you say, and you don't think, well, is this right or wrong? And he just lets it fly,
Well, and that's what I know a lot of people who follow him and like him appreciate, is that it's unfiltered and that it's just raw. It gets right out there. Someone who's worked in the government, and you have too, there are certain things that should go unsaid and unheard. And I hate to be that way, because I am a libertarian, and people go, well, I thought libertarians believed in no filters and full disclosure. Yes and no. As a guy who worked in the military and worked into programs, TARC programs and areas, there's stuff that the Americans just don't need to know. You don't need to know how the sausage is made all the time.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, honestly.
Well, both of us carried a top secret clearance for a long time. And,
yeah.
You saw things, you read things, you did things, and you're like, all right, yeah, American people doesn't need to.
There's no benefit.
Yeah.
And what it does is it actually hurts our ability to do things as a government, as a country. Mm-hmm. When all that stuff when a lot of it is disclosed, it's, like the Snowden stuff. Good and bad. I mean, what do you say? I don't know. I don't know all the facts. I don't have all the pieces to that. Some of it was good. Some of it was bad, because some of it disclosed a lot of stuff that you're like, hey, boy, that's, and when you start disclosing human intel elements and things we're doing, people die. Mm-hmm. I think that's what people don't realize, is there's patriots out there doing the dirty work. And when you start, circumventing and putting out this information because you feel the people die, people get killed.
Yeah. And that's, that's what I'm against. The information that detailed how the government is spying on you individually, that's the part where, I think the American public need to know, hey, my phone is not just a phone. My phone is a collection of data that anytime the government wants, they can figure it out.
Again,
your privacy is done.
In the 70s, we didn't worry about that.
No, we didn't worry about that at all.
Didn't worry about that. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Gaudis and everyone found out wiretapping, and we had some pretty decent technology back then. Mm-hmm. But it was different. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a little more overt than the code.
But you couldn't just go, even if it was exactly like a Gaudi, you couldn't just go as a government person and say, all right, I'm going to put a wiretap on this person and just see what's going on. I mean, you had to go through a channel.
Yeah, you had to get a warrant. You had to get a
I mean, a judge had to make that decision. Is this worthy of doing it? And a lot of times they said no, because the privacy back then, a person's privacy was a little bit more cared for. I think we were allowed to have more privacy back then, which now I don't think we are.
Well, I think today there's no privacy, but the cell phone thing, I'll be honest with you. I won't disclose too much, but the things that go on with cell phones today, I'll just say pretty early in my career wasn't much different. There's a lot, trust me, there's a lot of things I know I should be living in a hole in the ground with just, a steel door in there. But you have to look at it this way. Again, the stresses, we talked about that in the last episode. Are you going to freak out and worry about this stuff all day long? If you're not doing anything wrong, you probably don't have much to worry about. Don't get me wrong. Government is overstepping its bounds in many, many ways. Mm-hmm. But also they're their own worst enemy. The metadata they have on all of Americans is, I mean, I couldn't even tell you the amounts of data they're getting daily. For them to find something randomly on someone and use it against you is a needle in a billion haystacks. Mm-hmm. Because they've overwhelmed themselves with data.
Oh yeah.
Instead of focusing on the things that they should be focusing on, now they've decided just to violate all of our rights, spread out this massive web, huge web. And you think that's bullshit, and it is. But I think it's harder for them to find something now than when they looked at it and they actually targeted on something. And I know because I worked in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't just randomly open a case against someone. I had to have information that targeted me to that individual. I didn't have a database where I'd go, well, you know what, I'm looking for such and such. You know, I'm going to go find this trend in the data to start something. And that's kind of where we're at today. And yeah, it's just the stress of, and if you are stressed out by that, here's what I'd recommend. Shut down that cell phone. I know people, and I don't know if you have any friends like this, Dwayne, but I have friends today that they're our age or getting a little older. They're actually getting rid of their cell phones.
Yeah,
they're going back to landlines. And I'm not talking about the survivalist prepper community I'm in. I'm talking random working people who work from home, own their own businesses at home. They're not a storefront. They've ditched the cell phone and said no more. They've turned off their cable. They still have internet.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, you know what? If you need to get a hold of me, I have a phone at home. And some of them don't even have an answering machine.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't get a hold of me, I tell my friends, call me back when you think I'm home. And that was like the 70s. Remember, if you had to get a hold of your buddy, go, hey man, let's go ride our bikes or do whatever. You would call them up. If you didn't get a hold of them,
you didn't do it.
You didn't do it. That was it.
Yeah.
You know, you went, I guess I better call the next friend, call the next one, or you'd have to go to their house. And if you wanted to meet up, you know, for me, 30 miles to get into town, we would have to have our whole plan put together before I got there. Because if I went into town for 30 miles, my parents dropped me off and no one was there.
Yeah.
My parents were pissed. You know, and our plans were real, you know, diabolical. It was to go to the school gym and play basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they weren't these horrible, complicated, devious plans. All we wanted to do was play together, basically. I mean, and I don't see that much anymore either. I don't see kids just randomly getting together, getting their friends together. If you see them together, they're on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting there in a circle, all staring at their phone. You know, I guess we reminisce. It sounds great, but I think it was a good thing to talk about.
It was. It is. And we're not going back there. That's just not happening, but it's the age of reality. All right, let's wrap this thing up. I've got things to do. So
wait. Hey, people, did you hear this? Dwayne says he doesn't want to talk to you because he's got things to. No, I'm messing with you.
I have to go to the bathroom. That's the problem.
Well, I'm lucky. Mine hasn't hit yet, which is surprising. I think maybe my butt is programmed to not do anything while I'm sitting on the computer on a podcast. So I was worried I was going to have to drop and just run off. Run off because we're getting older. We don't have those. We don't have those time frames. Very narrow.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. You know, this is a good time for us just to get together. And now, you know, we put a couple of these up where we're just kind of shooting it. So hopefully they'll work out, and hopefully you guys enjoy it.
Because we do. Because we do. I hope they enjoy. We have fun because this is how me and Dwayne communicate. This is our time talking to each other in our busy schedules. So it works out really well.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. We've got a couple of guests coming up next week. We'll get back on the guest thing starting next week. So everybody have a good day, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. See ya.
Wait a second. Recording.